This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Real Talkers, we've been looking forward to this episode for a while. We promised you, if you tuned in on Thursday, if you caught our episode yesterday, you know that we told you today was going to be a day with storytellers. We were going to step outside where we've spent so much time lately. There's going to be little to zero talk about politics today. Not that international conflict doesn't matter and isn't on our minds and hearts, but we're probably not going to go there today either. We're going to hang out with 6 storytellers in back-to-back Real Talk roundtables. The one thing they have in common, they've all worked for one of Canada's most known and awarded student newspapers. That's The Gateway, out of the University of Alberta, and all of them are contributors to a beautiful book. This is Midlife No. 2. Now, if this sounds familiar, where have you heard of a midlife book series from those that worked and studied and caroused together at the University of Alberta? Well, back in April of 2021, a Real Talk Roundtable, followed by another, same format, featured 6 contributors to Midlife No. 1. It was a pandemic project of former colleagues coming back together in midlife and ruminating and telling stories and getting real. And we loved it, and you loved it. So with Midlife No. 2, hot off the press, here we are again. I can't wait for you to meet these 6. I guarantee this is going to be a lot of fun this hour, and it's all happening because of our friends at Rello. I want to give a quick shout out right now before we go any further. This is for everybody that's looking at the kids going back to school and realizing that maybe you should be doing the exact same thing. You got up this morning for your job, but you hate your job. You feel stuck. You're dissatisfied. Now is the perfect time to go back to school for a new career. You can launch that rewarding career in real estate with Rello's affordable online courses. They make it easy to pass your exam and get your real estate license so you can run your own business, set your own hours, and best of all, be your own boss. The earning potential is unlimited, plus you'll be helping people every single day as they buy or sell their homes. The best part about Rello, what sets Rello apart, is how committed they are to your success. They have live instructors who host online exam prep sessions every Saturday, plus a ton of resources to help you launch your real estate business well after you've passed the exam and gotten licensed. Right now, a great offer on deck, special for Real Talkers. With the promo code REALTALK, all one word, you can knock 20% off any Rello course. 20% off with the promo code REALTALK at rello.ca.
Kicking off season 4, I thought I'd give you a little more work. So we're going to do 2 roundtables today, Ryan. I hope you're ready for it.
I don't mind it. Season 4, episode 1.
We're
Is that
leveling
right?
up.
I love that. Our 3rd birthday yesterday. My voice box is a little banged up. I think
people on the line are asking if you're sick. So.
No, I'm not sick. I'm not going to lie. Christmas party season is underway, yeah. And Sarah Chan, Jhen Pabillano, and Neal Parmar can rest easy. I don't have COVID. I don't have a cold. I was just up late celebrating the season with people, and we're rolling that spirit into today's roundtable. Welcome to the 3 of you, and thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having
us. I can't believe it's been forever. It feels like April of 2021. We were talking about midlife. It wasn't called Midlife No. 1, was it?
Just midlife.
Because there was. Did you have an idea at the time, Jen, that you were maybe going to do a second book?
No, we were just like, oh, we'll do 1. It'll be amazing. And we actually didn't even think we'd sell it. We just thought it'd be a gift to each other. And then it turned out so great. We were like, we should make this a bigger thing. And then we just kind of kept going, basically.
Didn't it sold out? I think it was. I think it was like hot off the press. It got very close to selling out.
So the first,
yes, that's right.
The first print sold out immediately, and then we had to print it again.
So this is what, like, I in my best estimation described this book, at least No. 1, a pandemic project. People in midlife, or at least close to it, former colleagues coming together and digging deep and telling stories about their own experiences.
Yeah. Well, it turns out, we used to all work together when we were children, 18, 19, 20. Some people took longer to graduate, not judging here. But we had all these dreams about having these jobs, moving to these places, doing these amazing things. And actually, everybody in the cohort did those things, moved away, had those jobs, went to schools, live in New York and London. And it's funny because then you get to like midlife, which is, we're 40-ish, and you realize that even though you've achieved all these things, sometimes you're still looking. What am I here for? Like, who am I?
I love it. That's the voice of Sarah Chan. If you're joining us, if you're listening to this on the podcast or the Mixler live streaming audio app presented by California Closets, Sarah, you're obviously well known in Edmonton, a musician, a teacher, a social advocate. You have graced the pages of Edify's Top 40 Under 40. You wrote for the Gateway Arts and Entertainment section from 98 to 02. At that time, you were covering the beat that you love to this day, classical and opera.
Yeah, it was pretty niche.
That's the best part about university publications and newspapers, though, is that the editors, I was one myself out on the West Coast, you're always so grateful that you have contributors, and a lot of times you're just like, write whatever you want. I need to fill pages.
And my stuff was always on time.
That's amazing. You would have been the outlier in our project. Hey, well, I want to get into this with each of you, and we'll welcome each of you officially and get kind of specific on this. But Jen, the book kind of opens here with a survey, and I would love if we could get into it. And I know that the audience would appreciate it as well, because it gives us some insight into sort of what everybody's all about and basically who are we. Do you want to let me hand this? By the way, the book itself, people can see it on YouTube. We're showing it, but can we talk about the book itself? It feels like it was printed in the 50s. It's like beautiful hardcover. It feels like you don't see books like this a lot anymore.
No, this is like one of those masterpiece lifetime tomes that you will keep on your mahogany bookcase.
Totally.
With all your leather-bound books.
Yes.
And it's got a beautiful silver foiled cover that was illustrated by Raymond Biesinger, who did our last book too.
Absolutely beautiful job.
Yeah,
and it's kind of this timeless design.
Exactly.
So take us into who are the contributors of Midlife, just under 42 years of age on average.
Oh my God, yes. 56% of them have children. 19% have never married. 44% were once roommates with another contributor. I know, right? 59% own a home, and home is in quotation marks. So I don't know exactly what that means, but 41% rent a hovel. 26% change their bed sheets weekly, or so they say.
Weekly?
Yeah. And 44% think Egon is the greatest Ghostbuster.
Oh.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to... Johnny, is your pop culture knowledge leveled up strong enough that you could have a favorite Ghostbuster?
I'm going to go Spangler.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, Johnny on the spot. Yeah, you could offer me $1 million. I wouldn't be able to come up with one of the names. 59% own homes. I wonder if that's below or above what the national average would be for an average 42-year-old person. 59% in home ownership.
Does that feel high to you?
Well, I feel like home ownership numbers, to state the obvious, we talk about it lots on the show, are going down and down and down and down and down, right? So if you talked maybe to, like, what would the question be if you talked to current U of A students and said, in 20 years, do you think you will own a home? I wonder if 59% would say yes. I doubt it.
I doubt it too.
Yeah. You have kids that are like flirting with the teenage years and young adulthood. Hey, Dexter and Alice.
I do, yes.
Yeah. Does Dexter talk about things like home ownership and stuff like that?
He does, but in a strange context. It's all about trying to get his grandparents to gift one to him, which is smart, but an entirely different level of privilege.
That's amazing.
But I think that's how people own homes. It's like intergenerational wealth now, right?
Yeah.
You get help from people.
Yeah.
My first place, my dad had to co-sign with me. I didn't get that mortgage by myself, right?
Yeah.
Because I was a nobody.
Yeah, well, it sort of feels like if you don't have help these days, how the hell are you doing it, right?
Yeah.
Let's officially say hi to Neal Parmar. Neal, I've got my back turned to you, literally not on purpose, though.
No worries.
I owe you an apology.
All good.
You wrote news, entertainment reviews, and features.
That's right.
When you were at the Gateway. At that time, an aspiring child psychologist, you pivoted to journalism in grad school. You lived in a few different countries before returning to Treaty 6 territory, which you call home now, where you support the Sick Kids Foundation, Community Foundations of Canada, and your partner along with your kids. Mm-hmm. This must be an exciting project for you to take part in.
It was eerie timing. Jen and Sarah reached out just a couple of weeks after my partner had asked me, unprompted, what if we moved back to Edmonton? And we'd been away for about 2 decades at that time. And I think just the sandwich of COVID, not seeing our parents for so long, the challenges of trying to parent at home and school from home and be everything that your kids need at a young age. At that time, they were sort of 3 and 5-ish. They've since grown. But It was a lot, and it wasn't something in my head. I always sort of thought success meant leaving Alberta, not being in Edmonton, that to prove yourself, you really had to sort of take what my parents did as immigrants and sort of transcend in a different direction. And so I ended up thinking a lot about it and using this essay as a way to sort of process in real time all those feelings and thoughts and reasons why we should go back, why we shouldn't. And so kind of it emerged from that moment.
Your essay titled No Place at All, and it opens, we're in the midst of a global pandemic, dear Nadia, yet your mom recently stunned me with the following question: what if we move? And it just put you into a wind wobble in a way. It got your brain working. Can you take us into it?
Yeah, I mean, part of it actually was just what we were discussing, was the idea of housing and affordability. So our parents had come after 15 months with lockdowns and our concerns about vaccinations at COVID, and so they finally show up, and we realize they've aged quite a bit. We have this tall, skinny row house, no bathroom or bedroom on the main floor, and so my partner and I didn't even ask them. We just thought, let's start looking around for a more physically accessible home in case they want to come and spend more time with us, or we feel like we want to ask them for us to start taking care of them, but they'll come to Toronto. When we approached them with the idea, they said, well, first of all, we're not going to leave Edmonton. We have our community here, and sort of in a tongue-in-cheek way, how dare you think that we're just going to pick up and leave for you, right? To babysit, basically. Which, frankly, after COVID, we were like, but why wouldn't you want to do that? And so when we looked at the housing costs in our neighborhood even, it had skyrocketed, like triple, quadruple. And working at a nonprofit, my partner wasn't working at the time. There's no way we could have afforded that. And so that was also part of the equation of, do we continue living the life that we are far away, or come back and maybe look at housing a bit differently and sense of place and belonging differently as well.
Now, you have a unique perspective inherently baked in, as does anybody, based on their upbringing and based on their lived experience. But as the child of immigrants to Canada, you automatically have an interesting perspective, right? And people often talk about this, how first-generation Canadians or second-generation Canadians or immigrants to Canada, new Canadians, view opportunities, view challenges, view the importance of community and culture and connection. Was that apparent to you, like as a young person or as a young man when you were at the Gateway? How did that sort of manifest itself when you're putting this essay together, or even right now as you're talking to us?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've thought a lot about it because I grew up in Wetaskiwin before I got to the Gateway. And the Gateway was the first time I really felt like a sense of that connection and community. There were these fellow weirdos and creatives and people who really could see a successful career in the arts. And so when I decided to switch from psychology to journalism, I actually didn't tell my parents at all. I would freelance on the side, and I would, apply to graduate school programs. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, how could I do this? And so our friends really at the Gateway kind of allowed that opportunity to emerge.
Amazing. Jennifer, you were a Gateway news editor from 01 to 03, as well as, no big deal, Alberta bureau chief for the Canadian University
Neal
Press.
was too.
Neal was too?
Yeah.
Neal, you got to put that in your bio so I can give you the props that you deserve.
Jen was much better at it than me.
Hey, well, why don't we, I think people would be interested to hear, what is the Canadian University Press for people that don't know?
It still exists, right?
It may not.
I don't think it does.
Oh,
I
it
looked.
does. Bye-bye. Cup.
It was basically like a wire service for student newspapers, and it was established like as a collective. We all paid into it, and they would write stories. Newspapers would write stories across the country, then they would submit to this national service, who would distribute, which was like a lot harder to do before the internet.
Oh yeah.
Right?
So would you take time away from full-time studies, or were you doing this concurrent with your completing a degree?
I was doing this concurrently while I was completing my degree. I would go to school half time during the year, and then I would take summer courses so that I was able to complete my degree on time. I mean, I don't know what that means really.
Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I would do that. I would do like 3 courses a year. I worked at the Gateway, and I also did that Alberta bureau chief thing for 1 year. And so Neal was also there. And Christy Tucker was the first of all of us. I think she did it twice.
Nice shout out. Yeah. You now are project manager with the City of Vancouver.
That's right.
Which is very cool. A master's degree in journalism from UBC.
Yeah.
Take us into your piece. I love this, lessons in letting go. I think if you asked every single person that's going to listen to this or watch this to speak to lessons in letting go over the past 3 years, everybody would probably have their own context in that, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Oh, I think so. And it was really as I'm thinking about it, it was a meditation on like, what is enough for a person? What is enough? Because I think, the world we live in and the way that our social media and et cetera, it's always telling you that you're not enough, or that you don't have enough, or that there's something that you need. And that really kind of dovetailed with the meditation on the housing market. I mean, I live in Vancouver, and for the last 20-ish years, we've been having the same housing issues that I think people are now experiencing. Lucky for the rest of Canada. And it really makes you think, like, what is it that you actually need to live a good life? Because if you can't have that home that you buy, are you somehow not enough? Like, do you not have enough? Are you somehow missing out? And, it took a while to think about that and really process it. There's, stages of anger and grief and etc. But it really helped me think about like, what is it actually I need to live well in midlife? And also kind of paired that with a whole bunch of like smaller letting goes that happened in my life, which also contributed to that same thing about like items that I had in my home. Like I discovered a whole bunch of pens that I'd bought when I was like 21, and I was like, these are going to be my forever pen. I'm going to have these forever. And they're so great to write with, and I love it. And then I put them in a box and I never looked at them again. You know what I mean? Like things that you think.
Do you have
believe.
a forever pen now?
Oh, I sort of do, but I've started to realize that there is no forever pen. There's the just now pen,
No,
So,
you're speaking directly to me.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is my forever pen.
oh my God.
Yes, would you like to hold it? The Zebra Sarasa, the
Zebra
0.7 millimeter.
Yes.
I'm writing
so
with a 0.38
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
with a 0.38?
Yeah,
It's
no,
much
no.
too fine.
Japanese, it's the way to go.
Okay, and the Japanese, I'm going to say, are so much more dialed in on design than I ever
true.
would be. So maybe I should take.
I'm a
but
small writer.
but this is my comfort zone.
Yeah.
That Sarasa 0.7, and when that starts to run out, Johnny can tell you, I've got a drawer full of them here.
You have two right here.
And and there's more. I mean, you could take, like, I'm not
You
joking.
have a forever pen.
No, I have them in my coats. I have them in my pants pockets. I have them. Sometimes they'll snap and they'll get ink all over my shirt. But I don't blame the pen. It's my.
No.
I need lessons in letting go.
Yeah.
I have a hard time letting go. I call myself a collector. My wife calls me a hoarder.
Yeah.
Like I don't throw out T-shirts. I don't throw out socks, even if they're orphaned. Like I don't know. And I love. Can I read some of your words back
sure,
to
yeah,
you?
go for it. Oh boy.
You talk about how you had learned in school the central economic principle of scarcity, and then you talk about as a 30-something living in Vancouver. You said, I thought I could always find a way to get what I wanted, but it turned out there were hard limits: money, power, connections, and the luck of being born in the right place and time trumped my ability to buy a home in the city I loved. The result: a sense of deep grief and loss combined with mind-splitting rage. I bet so many people could relate to that.
Oh yeah. Like it's
Yeah.
funny having lived in Vancouver and seeing it process across the country now, because I'm like, you guys are where we were like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it feels terrible. It does. But then you start to realize, like, what is it that I want? Is the home the thing that makes me happy? When I look back on my life, I lived a lot of times in rental apartments, right? And I'm like, I don't think about the status of the rental apartment. I think about my family and my friends and the experiences I had and the memories we made. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. That's not what you're going to take to your deathbed. You know?
Yeah. Can I say also, like, it's a heavy word to use, and I'm not aiming it at you, at all of us, but also like to confront the entitlement that we may feel.
Yeah.
Like, some people right now in the housing thing, I think for a lot of people, and entitlement might be a loaded word, but for a lot of people, that dream was always there.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
I'm supposed to have, when I graduate from my parents' in domicile, I'm supposed to have my own place.
Yeah.
And the challenges here and it's not just young people.
No.
It's like families. It's elderly people on fixed income. The housing crisis is kind of impacting so many people. And I love how you wrote so honestly about the emotion that it invoked.
Oh, absolutely.
You got really honest. Anybody that follows you on Instagram or anything like that knows how much you love being in the mountains, and you decide to write about the gondola.
Oh, yeah.
Take us onto the gondola.
Oh, well, it was an adventure in being more newly divorced and a single mother. So sadly, not an original story, but there's a lot of single moms out there. And but then I decided I wanted to do something fun with the kids, something new, and I never skied before. And so I thought, ooh, lots of people ski, let's do that. And then so I'm a very organized person, got the stuff, we went and did the stuff, and the gondola is about taking the kids skiing on a mountain for the first time, and in a somewhat misguided choice, taking the gondola, which goes to the very top of the mountain. I guess most people know this. I didn't. And then there was a snowstorm.
You found out.
There was weather changed really quickly, and all sorts of things happened. But it's about how we got down, and it was pretty scary. I'm a new skier too. So, my kids are looking to me to guide them and to, actually one of them asked me if I could ski with them, like holding them between my legs like these other parents. And I'm like, you guys are both taller than me. That's not happening.
This is not going to happen.
If only I could.
We would love to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, we were already in a precarious enough situation. So we all did get down safely, but it's about the process of making choices. And while I was on that mountain, I kept thinking, if this was me with my parents, what would they have done? And I would have been berated, probably like verbally abused, maybe physically abused. And I'm like, none of those things, despite being very scared and feeling very alone up here, and none of that's going to get us down any faster.
It's interesting. So you talk about at the time when you're heading up skiing or you're writing this, and you say you're relatively newly divorced.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, Jen, in the survey there, was it 19%? Never married, which is kind of interesting. I'd be interested to see how that stacks up with the sort of the average. We know statistic. I don't know what the 2023 statistic is, but approximately we say half of marriages end in divorce. At midlife, at this stage, to bring together all of these people, so many people have experienced love and life and loss and tragedy and new birth and all of these things, right? Like everyone's bringing this lived experience to the table in a way that none of you possibly could have back at the Gateway in the 90s and the early 2000s.
We were just kids. I think between the first book and the second book, we've had one of our contributors had twins. Adam's father passed away since.
Yeah, Adam Rosenhart.
Yeah,
right.
he wrote in the first one, and he's in the second one as well. And a lot of things have happened. We lived a lot of life over COVID.
Yeah, really amazing. How is this process? And in just a couple of minutes, we're going to check in with three more of your colleagues, with Erika Thorkelson, Dave Alexander, and Neal Ozano. Ask them the same questions and some different ones as well. But how is this process, Jen? And by the way, I should note that Jen and Sarah, you also are the editors of this project, correct? So you've taken on a little bit more of the heavy lifting. How is this experience different in 2.0 in the second book than the first?
It took a lot longer. The first
Really?
one was 4 months, lightning in a bottle, and this one was like 18, like really drawn out and very different. We weren't like as connected as well in the same way that we were the first time, because the first time was like under lockdown, no one could leave their homes, all of us were writing to each other on the internet all the time, and then the world opened up, and so people had other things to do, and which was fine. Obviously we want the world to be open, but it changed the experience of how we were writing together. And the work is still great, and I think the connection is still there, but it was just different. And we like to call it like it's like having a first child and a second child. This has the same DNA, but it's a different child completely.
You might know something about that.
Yeah. That might be part of the reason why my voice is a little banged up right now. There's no rest. But it's like, everybody talks about how like the days are long, but the years are short. And that's so very true. So how this relationship with your parents and this kind of I love that they inform you, they remind you, we're not going anywhere, we're not leaving,
We're our own people.
and then here you are. So did you find that to this day your relationship with your parents continues to sort of like shape you or influence you? How has your relationship with your parents evolved from when you were a young man, when you were writing at the Gateway, and then now when you've got kids of your own?
Yeah, I think in the past I really saw it as I needed to establish my own identity, become successful, and whatever that looked like. And it was sort of this endless race. The bar would have always moved. And so now it's different. Now there's sort of a settling in, an appreciation of who they are, who I am with them, and just sort of an ease that comes, I think, with midlife, and a little bit of this anxiety that can leave us when we really lean into those relationships. And just watching them, I was there the other week, and my kids were loving just being there. We lived with them for about 8 months while our house was being built. And by the time we left, the kids were like, why did we stay so long? Why didn't we just stay in Toronto? There was a lot of angst. And then this year, now, my daughter was asking them, can I move back in with you? Like they love that connection, or they really just like the one with me. So either way, I'll take it. It's a great place to be in.
My brother and his wife just moved in. Well, they just moved out. They just bought a new house. But they had that sort of in between time where they moved in with their 2 young girls and with my parents. It was reminding us, when we did that, moved in with my dad's parents for a number of months while we were waiting for a house to be ready for our family in the early 90s. And I look back and I can remember like the smell of the basement where my temporary bedroom was, coming up to the breakfast table and being with Grandma and Grandpa and not knowing at the time, I was like 11 or 12 or something, but like not knowing like to cherish it. But now how those are such cherished memories, you know, they're gone and it's just like something that I'll always be so grateful for, that snippet in time.
Yeah, and how much more rewarding is that than any degree or accolade you might get along the way, right?
Yeah.
I think realizing that sooner is always easier, and it took me long enough, but I'm lucky I have a second chance. Not everybody gets that. So this is sort of our second chance at life back in Alberta.
Are you, I should know the answer to this, but are you hosting events, or is there a way that people I know there's gatewaybook.ca, isn't that
Midlife Book.
Midlife Book,
.ca.
geez, my brain
That's
is
where all
midlifebook.ca. If people want it, they can order copies of it, right?
Yeah.
You have a launch party coming up on November 25th, which is tomorrow. So this is the second, you've said, the final, it's on the record, the final anthology.
Oh, yeah, I'm not
You've
doing this
let
again.
everybody know there will be no Midlife number 3.
It's like that accidental third kid that comes
We
along.
have,
the way.
yeah,
we have to
that's
go
right.
live somewhere.
Exactly.
9 years from now, we'll have you back here, and we'll be in our third studio.
Yes.
We'll have leveled up one more
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
So
More
it
birthdays.
so it officially launches today. Thank you for being with us on launch morning. By the way, we really appreciate that. And 27, including you, former members of the Gateway, the student newspaper at the U of A, all coming together. People, you can buy it. We recommend at the Glass Book Shop at Audrey's Books. Those are our favorite bookstores. You can buy the ebook as well. It's all your website, by the way, is just beautifully done.
Go, Jen.
You did a really
my
nice.
husband, David.
Is that right? Is he a
Yeah.
designer?
No, he is
He's
an
just-
architect.
Well, okay.
Who dabbles in
architects know what they're
website
doing.
design,
Yeah. Well, the website's nice and clean. Midlifebook.ca. People can attend the launch party if they like. I guarantee, has this pulled out of the woodwork people that you never thought you'd hear from?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a whole bunch of people turned out that I know actually know you and bought tickets to tomorrow. So
Is
I'm
that
excited
right?
to
Yeah.
see them.
Great.
Yeah,
Joint
Krishna
reunion.
Gupta.
Oh, that'll be fun.
My
And
mother-in-law.
For the first
Oh
book,
right. Okay. So
for the first book,
mother-in-law-
my grade 4 teacher reached out to me and she was like, I'm
Really?
so proud of you.
So
Yeah.
sweet.
She was so excited. I was like, oh my God, Mrs. Kleparchuk.
It's
She's
like,
yeah, she's
it's
amazing.
like whatever. I'm not a philosopher, but it's like planting trees. I bet being like a grade 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 teacher, right?
Yeah.
Where you don't really see until like little Jhen Pabillano comes out in midlife
Got a
and
book.
publishes this book, and she probably remembers you in grade 4,
Yeah,
right? And,
exactly.
what a cool experience for a teacher. Well, thank you to the three of you for joining. You guys want to hang out in here and hang out in the green room and hear your colleagues chime in?
Oh,
and,
we
course.
totally
and
want
hey,
to hear them.
if they're behaving too well and there's something that they're not talking about and you want to give me like a zinger to throw them, a fastball to throw them, you just pop your head in.
Amanda
Yeah.
told Dave he has to wear clothes.
Dave has to wear clothes.
David Alexander, you better be wearing
Okay,
clothes.
or at least keep his camera like torso level. Okay, good stuff. That's Jhen Pabillano, Neal Parmar, and Sarah Chan, 3 of the 27 contributors to Midlife number 2, and you can learn more at midlifebook.ca. We'll talk to Erika, Dave, and Neal coming up in just a quick second. But first, I wanted to remind you that Friesen Brothers this weekend has you covered. Families, look at this, I say Friesen Brothers, and everybody's eyes just light up. You must be excited about the one coming to West Edmonton. Woo! That's going to be opening. We're not allowed to say exactly when, but spring 2024. It'll be location number 17. There's 16 of them, Alberta-owned, Alberta-grown. Friesen Brothers has you covered at times where we know the wallets are feeling a little lighter. Everybody's trying to stretch their dollars. I want to recommend you go to friesen.com. That's Freson, and check out the Family Essentials flyer. It's not just quality food for low prices every day. Yeah, it is that, but they've also got awesome recipes. And so if you're looking for stuff like comfort food, they've got great pulled pork recipes, hamburger recipes, stew, all kinds of stuff. You'll find it all in the Family Essentials flyer at friesen.com. Hey, Johnny, we had lunch with Kelly from Complete Care Restoration yesterday. He had been listening to the show. We were talking about EVs, and he told me something. He said, you can use our advertising time on Friday if you want to tell this story. So get this. You and I were talking about the electric pickup the other day.
Of
Okay,
course, yeah.
so Complete Care Restoration,
The
Lightning, the F-150. So Complete Care they have like 125 employees, so they don't have 125 EVs. But earlier this year in March, okay, they bought 6 EVs.
Amazing.
6 of them. They've bought 4 chargers. So 6 EVs and 4 chargers over 8 months. They've saved $38,000 in fuel.
That's incredible, but I thought you were going to tell us we were getting free lightnings. So I'm going to say that's awesome, but I'm a little let down.
Okay, $38,000 in fuel
amazing.
they've saved on just 6 EVs. We love the team at Complete Care Restoration. Most, we love that they're streaming Real Talk live in their shop, although we know that their team's all out working hard. We're proud to do business with them. Construction, renovation, helping people get back on their feet after fire and flood. You can find them online at CompleteCareRestoration.ca. If your project for home improvement is focusing more on the outdoors and you want shovels in the ground in spring, then this is a perfect time to get in touch with Eden Landscaping at landscapeedmonton.ca. Why? Because number one, the design process takes a bit of time. They want to get it perfect. And number two, if they're going to procure special construction materials, the types of installations that are going to set your project apart, because of the supply chain, sometimes they're going to need a few extra weeks. So it's a great time right now to reach out. Get the conversation started with Mike and his team at Eden Landscaping. You'll find them online at landscapeedmonton.ca. We're talking about Midlife 2.0. And right now, an opportunity to check in with 3 additional contributors. Neal, you're good to go. Don't worry about it, buddy. Nobody cares. You can just walk right in front of them. We're just chilling right now. These 3 are going to go hang out in the lounge. Amanda, you deserve a shout out as well. We got contributors, people behind the scenes. I love the energy in the studio right now. But we're going to go to a Zoom roundtable for 2.0 as we say hello to Erika Thorkelson, Dave Alexander, and Neal Ozano. Dave, you've already passed your first test. You showed up wearing clothes today. There appeared to be some question whether or not you were going to be on your best behavior, but we appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. I'm glad they turned me into a character who doesn't wear clothes, but
Yeah,
that's the friendships that we have.
Is that based on your legacy when you were the Gateway's arts and entertainment editor, then editor-in-chief when you were at the U of A?
No, I know HR was a whole different world back then, but no.
No. You were earning your degree in film and media studies at the time, yeah? Before moving to Toronto and kicking off your career, which runs to this day. You're working as a producer, writer, and director?
Yes, that's correct. Although the reason I came out here was to work at a magazine, and I ran that for a while as the editor-in-chief. And then, as we all kind of know, the publishing industry took a bit of a dive.
Yeah, no kidding. You've seen it all. I want to get into that in just a little bit, but let's welcome your co-panelists. Erika Thorkelson, it's great to have you here on the show. A settler of Icelandic, French, and English heritage. You're coming to us live from Vancouver, where you live, formerly the arts and entertainment editor at the Gateway, and right now a writer and instructor at arguably one of the coolest spots in the entire country for creators, the Emily Carr University of Art and Design. Did you always dream of being there?
No, it was a real surprise for me, actually. I love teaching. I wanted to be a writer. I did an MFA in creative writing, and then I tried to be a freelance writer for a few years, and I ran out of money pretty quickly. And so I was like, what else can I do with this skill? Because I taught in Japan, I taught ESL for a while. And I ended up working at the Writing Center at Emily Carr, and then they gave me classes, and now I teach a humanities class and I teach creative writing, and it's a dream. The students are the coolest people. I observe them in order to feel cool myself. Like, I don't actually try to be as cool as them. That would be a foolish errand for somebody who's in her mid-40s. But I love working with them, and they energize me so much constantly, and they make me think about writing in ways that I had never really thought about it before.
We were just talking to Jhen Pabillano, a different context about what it would be like to be an elementary school teacher, and then to see your former students grow up and flourish and you know, produce their own incredible writing. But you must see that as well, even over the course of working with students. Some of them probably discover through the process of post-secondary that maybe there's some brilliance beneath the surface that they didn't know existed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, watching them, I teach a lot of first years, so I get them when they're really like fresh, and then watching them, seeing them in the hallways, and sometimes I teach them 2 or 3 years in a row, and seeing how they grow into themselves as artists, as designers. And then seeing their work, because we have big art and exhibitions that happen every year. And so I see their work year after year, and I see it on the wall, and I'm like, oh, I knew that one. Oh, this is so much better than what they were doing in first year. Like it's really amazing to watch them expand and grow. And like, I don't know, like you were right to say, like it's like planting a seed. You never really know exactly what you give them that's going to be taken up later on. But it's an honor to know that that's part of the mix that creates who they become later.
I love it. Neal, welcome to the show. Joining us from your car. What part of the country are you in right now?
I am currently in Windsor, Nova Scotia.
Wow, very cool. You have one of my favorite bios in the whole book, and I think I read them all. I want to read this. Neal Ozano, the millennium-ending editor-in-chief of The Gateway, after prehistoric stints editing and managing news, and years of volunteering. You've worked in some capacity for the CBC, Post Media, Frank Magazine in Nova Scotia, The Coast in Halifax, and as you write, a bunch of other bankrupt and shuttered things. Do you need to own that, or were you a victim of trends like many others of us?
These ships were sinking by the time I got to them.
Yeah.
The day I started journalism school was probably 3 or 4 years before, 3 or 4 years after anyone with any idea what was going on should have known that everything was going south.
I had this kind of experience. I've told this story. I always dreamed of being a 6 o'clock news anchor. That was what I wanted to be since I was like 11 years old. And for me, it was always strange because as my career in television was coming up, I couldn't ignore the fact that the whole thing was coming down. And it was a really weird place to be because you realize you're on this trajectory toward kind of like ultimately a pretty dismal outlook. But at the same time, it's what I had always wanted to do. And I couldn't quite tear myself away from it and just stifle or kill the dream. How did you reconcile that yourself?
Well, a lot of the places that I was at just sort of caved in around me. So regardless of what I wanted and how I wanted it all to go, like as I joined the teams at these places, I either was lost to layoffs or to overwhelming amounts of work that led to dismissal. Like it's never been an easy industry, and by the time I got there, it was for the absurdly passionate who were willing to be broke. And eventually that was not me. And I mean, I would hang on as long as I could, but eventually at one point we had to move back to Edmonton, and I didn't even look for a journalism job when we got there. I went directly to construction, residential framing, and have not left construction since then because there's been absolutely no work in the journalism industry for anyone who wants a normal life, really.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I want to get into what you write about because it has correlations to a whole bunch of the stuff you've already talked about. But I'd love to pick your brain for a second, and maybe all three of you. I mean, you're all storytellers. All three of you. We see journalism basically, and I hate putting it this way, but like, let's just say we see the current or the traditional model of journalism dying on the vine. I don't like saying journalism's dying on the vine because there's so many talented people that understand the importance of the fourth estate. They understand the importance of journalism. But I don't know if you tried, and we've done it on the show, try to pin people down and say, forecast for us what the future of journalism or news media looks like. And I'm not sure, maybe aside from stuff like what we're doing, that people can really boldly say, here's the model that's going to work. Like, do you have an inclination of what that might look like?
So as I've been watching, like at one point I ran an online news site. And at the time, 2011, I was like, fantastic, this is going great. We have a lot of traffic for a startup, and the stories are A+. And nobody has figured out the advertising model yet. So as soon as our investors and the other curious money dumpers disappear, we are dead. and it was never figured out. And that was the last real editing journalism job that I was part of. The rest have been either peripheral marketing, or I did a little bit of media monitoring for a company run through Post Media and things like that. But it was all either freelance or pathetic. And yeah, that for a long, long time. By 2014, I had not had a full-time job in journalism for almost 4 years.
Wow. Dave, what was it like for you coming up in film? Was there like you see people obviously, like there's so many incredibly talented screenwriters and directors and like creators, I mean editors, everybody that's part of the process that nobody would ever know their name. And then there are some directors where everybody knows their name. It's a career that's full of moonshots and for some people, dreams that are broken. Some people create for the purpose of creating. Some try everything that they can do to get down to California. Some work proudly and work all the time in Canada. How did you sort of navigate your journey?
You definitely have to be a bit of a masochist because you're taking punches all the time and you live in a world of frustration and you're always on a roller coaster where you've got things that you're pitching and maybe it gets close. I had a documentary that was ready to go, and then Netflix put out a show that did an episode that was basically what we were going to do. And so all that work just died overnight. And then you've got an industry that changes so fast in terms of tastes and technology. And, in Canada, where government money is going to go. And so there's all these elements that make it very, very difficult to put things together. And then, you're also up against stuff like, we want to do the same thing that's been done before. So give us a variation on this existing property, or
Right.
we want an adaptation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just this world that's very complex and can be very frustrating. And what they say is the people that succeed in it, generally it's just because they stick it out and they're really stubborn. And luckily I'm pretty stubborn.
Yeah, no kidding. I would love to get into your pieces, your features in Midlife number 2. And Erika, I've heard of this Vancouver neighborhood of Shaughnessy. Anybody across Canada that pays attention to stories of outrageously priced real estate listings has heard of Shaughnessy. This is where you can find the $25-30 million houses in one of Vancouver's most desired neighborhoods. And you live right near there, and it inspired your essay. You want to take us into it?
Yeah, so I actually I grew up with housing insecurity. I grew up in like housing projects and like townhouses. And so when I moved to Vancouver, it was a bit of a shock, the level of like wealth that you would exist next to. And so I live in this apartment. It's a lovely apartment. Like it's not big by Edmonton standards, but it's like massive by Vancouver standards. It's an older building, and I love it. It's got hardwood floors. It's got all the touches of like a classic 1940s building. But like a 5-minute walk away are these mansions, like full-on mansions that take up like massive amounts of space. And there's a housing crisis. You were talking to Jen about it before. Like people are living in the streets. People are desperate to find rentals. And so I wrote about this sort of surreal feeling of like going for walks through a neighborhood that is so unbelievably wealthy that people don't even seem to exist inside of it. Like it's like living next to a ghost town, but it's like the most comfortable ghost town that has ever existed. And like the only people I run into on the streets are people who work for the people who own the houses. And so I have this like hyperactive imagination where I imagine like ghosts or the houses themselves being like figures themselves. And then I talk about literary stuff. It's something that I have thought about for a long time, and I think about it all the time. Like I'm boring for how much I love to talk about what goes on in Shaughnessy. Like just recently, Vancouver City Hall tried to talk about densifying Shaughnessy, and they shut it down. Like they put out a motion, and they won't even talk about densifying Shaughnessy. Meanwhile, they're talking about densifying like all around transit hubs, which includes my neighborhood. So like my building could be demolished before they even consider allowing people to make rentals in Shaughnessy, which blows my whole mind.
I feel like these stories are happening like that. That's certainly a high profile one, because it's one of, I mean, probably with average property values, it's arguably the most expensive neighborhood in Canada, right? I think maybe like Oakville, Ontario maybe has one. There's a few in Vancouver, West Van, North Van, but like Shaughnessy is renowned. But every city, like every major city, is having these conversations. There's conversations like that happening right here in Edmonton, where people are blowing gaskets, entertaining talk of zoning changes and bylaw changes and densification and infill. People are concerned. The proponents of status quo are concerned that the heritage of the neighborhood, or the vibe of the neighborhood, is going to be interrupted, right? Nobody wants the densification next door to their heritage home.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because the houses that are currently being built in Shaughnessy look like historical houses. They don't look like, they're not bright new mansions. They're Victorian mansions. So it's as if they're sort of creating this bubble around the neighborhood where they're living in a much earlier time, while the rest of the city struggles even to build something that's over 500 square feet. Like you hear about these micro apartments that keep being built, and that's the solution for densification, is that people should live in smaller and smaller apartments. It's super complex, and yeah, it's everywhere. It's been going on for a long time here in Vancouver, but it's happening in every city. This like difference between wealth and poverty. It's just particularly noticeable in Vancouver because we have a neighborhood where the average housing price is $33 million or something, like higher, over 33 million now. It's strange.
Wild. Can I read some of your writing to you for the benefit of the audience? I love this. Still living in Vancouver, I find it hard to escape the question of how much a person needs. The people in the mansions seem to need so much space. They need great lawns that require armies of landscapers. They need pools and verandas, though I have never once seen a person swimming or lazing in an easy chair with a book. Sometimes it angers me how much space they have that goes unused, and I think about what it would be like to take it from them. But how do you stay angry when the air is so calm and the leaves are so very green? I thought that was brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's hard to deny. You get kind of caught up in the magic of this space, and I can understand on a certain level wanting to protect that magic, that beauty. I took a video and shared it, or that we'll be sharing with the book, where I just walk around the neighborhood reading from the essay, and it's autumn and the leaves are golden, and it's really it's a magical place, but it can't continue. Like, this can't continue.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, you know what, the wildest things is the most expensive houses are always the ones that have no mortgages on them too. Those are always the ones that were paid for in cash. We've got Kimberly in our live chat right now on YouTube. She says, I went to a party in Shaughnessy once. Kimberly, we're going to need more details. We're going to need you to follow up with a full description on who is there. Do you have any questions, Erika, you want to ask Kimberly in the live chat, specifics you want to hear about?
What I want to know is what she noticed about the house, because the one person that I have met who went into one of those houses told me that the construction was actually super cheap, and she'd stayed there as a guest, I think, and that she noticed that none of the corners were square. And it drove her nuts. And so I'd be curious to know about the quality of the actual construction. Neal is like, no, that's not right. I know you have feelings about that, Neal.
Neal looks very concerned.
Well, all of like when I did framing in Edmonton, all of the very, very big houses were done just as badly as the very small ones. It was a matter of the crew that was on the job. It had nothing to do with the plans or the material.
Hey, Neal, can you talk to us about scrapportunities? I should mention your essay is titled "That's Not Garbage."
It was a, I don't know. I liked the I liked construction, but the part that really caught my attention for a while was the fact that a lot of material was going into the garbage. And once I had figured out that some of it had value, I figured out that some of the stuff on the side of the road had value sometimes too, like appliances or like I was never a bottle picker, only because they're only 5 cents per can and bottle in Nova Scotia rather than 10 cents like in Alberta. But there's all sorts of material on the side of the road. Anything made of metal is worth something. And I became obsessed for a while and made a mess of my basement with it. And then, as I wrote, some of it fell down and broke some other stuff in my basement and buried some other stuff. And I had to clean it all up, cash it all in, and get myself under control.
Did it change your perspective though on everything? Like now, I mean, like my brother, he doesn't like. My brother worked in construction for a lot of years, and we'll be like, he'll come with me when I'm walking my dog when we're visiting him down in Calgary. And he's curious. He'll peer into a bin and be like, he's like, you have no idea how much all those offcuts are worth. Like all the wood that's in there. He blows his mind when things are getting tossed from construction sites, just because his brain, you can almost hear him doing the math.
When I was in Edmonton, like working for larger companies, cleaning up the site meant cleaning up the site. Everything that was left over went in the bin. Full length pieces of lumber, which now are worth about 4 times what they were when I first started in Alberta. After COVID, everything went crazy. During COVID, everything went crazy. But like electricians would be throwing wires in the garbage, leftover wire bits in the garbage. And all the ducting people would throw aluminum and tin in the garbage. And like some of the wires, when stripped, the copper wire when stripped is worth about $5 a pound, which is almost the same as hamburger on sale. Like, it's ridiculous how much money is going in the garbage. And for the longest time, even as a kid, I was worried about environmental stuff. But like the fact that we found a little intersection between money going in my pocket and garbage going not in the garbage, totally lit a fire under me for a while. And still, like, I'm currently working in Nova Scotia as in construction, and I bought all of the wires from the company I work for that was tearing down 3 older houses with the intent of stripping them for massive profit and absurd amounts of work.
And also helping the planet.
Yes, of course. That one too.
That one too. Also helping the planet. As somebody who has a very difficult time throwing things out, I'm talking about me. I loved your piece, and I loved how you talked about clutter and decluttering, and how your brand was not going to be that of a mega hoarder. And for anybody that's resonating with, I would encourage them to pick up either the hardcover or the digital copy, the ebook of Midlife. You can read all these essays that we're talking about at midlifebook.ca. Hey, Dave, would you take us, with the power of your storytelling, to Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump? Would you take us there, in particular for the people that have never been there?
So if you go south of Calgary, there's a UNESCO World Heritage Site called Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. And it's called that because there's a cliff, and the Indigenous people figured out a way to trap and funnel herds of bison over this cliff. And they would die at the bottom, and the people would butcher them, and it would sustain them, for possibly months. It was a very, very important site, and it's an amazing archaeological site. The interpretive center there is fantastic, and if you stand up on top of that cliff, it's got one of the most beautiful views of the prairie. And that's where I found myself one day. I was in Calgary working on a film a couple falls ago, and I hadn't been to Head Smashed In since I was a kid, so I thought, I'm gonna take this Saturday. It's beautiful. I'm going to drive there by myself. I got there a couple hours before close, so it was very quiet. And I did the interpretive center, and then I went up on the cliff, and I just stood and I looked out, and I had this incredible moment where I thought about, how lucky I was to be there, how much space there was, especially coming from Toronto during a pandemic when a lot of people were trapped in tiny apartments, and the depth of history that was there, and why I had these feelings about things, and some of those things were morbid. When I was a kid, I was fascinated by the idea that they were slaughtering all these animals, and I was fascinated by the idea that there used to be giant monsters called dinosaurs that lived in the place where I live. And it gave me this amazing opportunity to reflect a little bit, and that was the seed of this essay.
Amazing. Did you see that coming? Like, is that for you? Are you a guy that typically on set or when you're scouting a location, are you a little bit esoteric? Like, are you a guy that finds deep meaning often, or were you caught off guard a little bit?
I guess I was caught off guard a little bit, but I think I'm someone who thinks everyone should have those opportunities to self-reflect and try to find some deep meaning, because when you hit midlife in particular, you start to go through this process where you're sort of vaulted forward in your life, where suddenly the parents that took care of you, you might be taking care of them, or maybe they're dying. Your kids might be growing up and leaving the house, and it has this effect on you where you start to really question what you're doing with your life, what you want, what's important to you. And I think that's a great thing. I think it causes a lot of anxiety, and I think people don't talk about that as much in terms of people at the midlife stage sort of having a lot of mental health issues because of that. But I know a lot of people that, especially during COVID, they were just going through it. And a lot of it was sort of figuring out, what do I want to do with my life? What does it mean? Why is this important? And so I always encourage, and I hope the essay encourages people to do the same, just to think about the meaning in their own life.
Dave, I'm embarrassed. I don't quite know how to pronounce the title of. Is it Prata Vitalis?
I mean, your Latin is probably as good as mine, so let's say yes. Prata Vitalis. Basically, it's Latin for prairie vitality, and I was trying to search for a word or a phrase that could describe what I was feeling, because I had this feeling of overwhelming vitality. I felt so alive standing on that cliff that day. And then I sort of connected it back to my morbid interest. And people talk about, like my career's built a lot working in horror movies and doing journalism based around horror stuff. And people are like, well, why you have such morbid interests? And the closer that we get to danger and death, the more vital we feel. And you can connect those feelings to getting older and being in midlife as well. So I was looking for a way to tie those threads together.
Well, you do it beautifully. I loved all three of your essays, and I'm really grateful. This is so neat to have three of you joining us from three different provinces. There's 4 provinces conversing right now, which is really great. These are some of our favorite Real Talk roundtables. I want to thank all of you for making time for us this morning. Special shout out to you, Erika. You woke up early on the West Coast. I mean, this was easy for Dave and Neal. They're on like their 6th coffee already. But for all three of you, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure chatting with Neal Ozano, Dave Alexander, and Erika Thorkelson, all three of them contributors to Midlife No. 2. Have a wonderful weekend to the three of you, and congratulations on the book. Oh, I love it. You guys are holding up. Those are such beautiful hard covers. A shout out again to the designers. You can order your own. Get this book on your shelf. I guarantee you're going to love these essays. And if you're like me, I mean, I love these little snippets. Each one of them is like, you can read them in 5 minutes, and the insights are all over the place, all cool. observations, some of them related to the pandemic, some of them personal growth, some of them rooted in challenge. I mean, just really, really, as you can see from this roundtable and where we've gone and what we've learned, and I can even just see in the live chat, people having so much fun with this. Did we hear back on, Johnny, what the house party was like in Shaughnessy from Kimberly? I don't know if I did see that she says, I worked for years in fine dining in Vancouver. This is Kimberly in follow-up. She says, outside the restaurant, there are always Bentleys, Rolls Royces, Ferrari. What's the plural of Rolls Royces? Rolls Royce?
I believe it's Rosés.
Rolls Royces? We don't know. It's not our
Just
wheelhouse.
wanted to hear you say it.
Ferraris. Kimberly says the old money in Vancouver is incestuous.
It's crazy.
Incestuous.
Even 20. I was there in 2001 to 2008.
Yeah.
It was just, I felt the same way as Erika. Like, I would look across at North Van when we would drive over there because that's where all the pretty houses were. We knew Justin Timberlake had a summer home there.
Oh yeah.
And just looking at it, and there was no one anywhere ever. There was never anyone in the backyard. There were swings in the backyard and pools and these lavish patios and all these decks and outdoor, like the outdoor fireplaces. And even at night, no one around. During the day, no one around.
Well,
no
they're
one
probably at
walking
their,
their dog. No one doing nothing.
They're at their Italian villa.
It's just, to me, I agree with Erika 100%. It's not that you want their space. You just wonder why it isn't being utilized. Why is all this space just empty, sitting there, and why is it worth millions and millions of dollars? Also, Dave, really related to Dave's comment when he talked about when you get to midlife and you're kind of in that niche where, like, you know, your parents are getting older and you might have to start helping them out financially or mentally, physically, whatever. And then your kids are moving out as well. I don't have kids, but I'm in that space too. As a nightclub, like, I still do DJing at the nightclubs. It's just like, I would never go to a nightclub now, I don't think, unless I was working.
Do you have hard out
why would I
age?
spend my night and then waste my next day when I would rather get up in the morning and go for a walk with my partner or spend the night,
You've
talking
changed,
or,
John.
You know
You've
what I mean?
changed.
Well, that really resonated with me.
Do you
when he
think?
said
Do you
that.
have a hard out? I remember when I was hosting the Oilers games, when I was the in-game host, and there's a lot of like running up and down. It's a very involved job, and now that I don't work for them anymore, I can say there's a lot of drinking involved. I would never say that when I was working for them, but it's a hard lifestyle.
It's not that you go there to drink, but you're
just around people. It's as
the
an event
host with
host.
people.
People get it. If you've been at events where I'm hosting, or if you've been at events where Johnny's DJing, you know that people
You're
come
entertaining
up. People want to buy you a drink. It's a hard lifestyle. That doesn't mean you have. I know someone's going to write in right now. You realize you don't have to drink everything people buy you. I'm just saying it's a hard lifestyle. And my wife and I have talked many times about evolving out of that. And ultimately, COVID
100%.
for me was, but it was time to hang them up.
100%.
It was time to move on from that stage in my life. Do you at midlife? Do you think about like DJing, for example? You can evolve as a DJ and do different gigs, but
of course.
Do you know how old you would be the last time you would DJ at a club? Do you think about that?
I think I'm coming to the end of it. I think I've got one more summer season left in me. Yeah, I'll shout out the bar, Greta Bar. I went there, maybe 2 months ago and played. And I look out there and there's a lot going on. And kids seem to be a little more tame. But when I see like the sweaty dancing and the closeness and the vomiting and all that stuff, I'm like, were we like this back then?
Yeah.
Or was I just immune to it all?
No,
but also,
I think
I
we were
understand
like
what
that,
you're talking about, the drinking thing. Like when I do go DJ corporate events or weddings are really bad. You get the father of the bride or the father of the groom or the father of whichever partner coming up. I remember I was at a Russian wedding and these guys... Like, it's straight vodka the whole time. And they came up and said, hey, do a shot. We're celebrating, blah, blah, blah. This is a horrible Russian accent.
It's not bad.
And I said, okay, yeah. And you don't want to disrespect someone, especially when their culture is rooted.
And they're paying you.
Exactly. So I have a shot. And then another one. And then I had to just, at some point, I had to say, listen, I'm not going to be able to perform here. But now, I told you this yesterday. I went all last summer not having a drink at all while I'm working at a wedding. And that's just... because I want to be a human the next morning. I want to spend time with my partner. I don't want to sleep till 4
I love
p.m.
that perspective. Right. And we hear from, and I talked to somebody, I know I talked to you about this off the show, and I promised her, I met a real talker a while ago, and I promised her that I wouldn't, anyway, she told me, I told you this was kind of tough to hear. She told me she said, I love the show. She said, but I've had to stop listening to the show. She says, because you guys reference alcohol a lot.
We do.
And she's a recovering alcoholic, and we had the most meaningful, wonderful conversation. And she said, you know what? She said, I'm going to start tuning in again. And I remember it was a Thursday. I said, well, don't tune in tomorrow because it's our craft beer roundtable. I said, so maybe wait till Monday. But it's not lost on me. And I have so much respect for people that see something in their life, whether it's booze, drugs, gambling, porn, whatever it is, food, and they just say, that is not healthy for me. This is standing in the way of me being my best person. Yeah. And maybe those reflections are coming in midlife. I love how this book is prompting all these thoughts, some of them deeper than others. I see some of you have questions about the book or the launch party. You can get all the details online at midlifebook.ca. Before we get to our tradition here every Friday, presented by our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, wanted to let you know real quick before the Flamethrower that our friends at Kubi Renewable Energy are hiring right now. This is unbelievable. They've still got their teams up on roofs doing solar installs. Can you believe it? Like almost at the end of November, just the way the weather's going. But that soon will end. So I said to Jake, the CEO there, I said, you want us to chill out on mentioning the fact that you're hiring? He goes, dude, we're always hiring. I go, but you're not installing in the winter. You're hiring installers. He says, listen, he goes, we're doing the interviews. We're going to be starting people in January. They got to get trained up. He goes, you tell the Real Talk audience we are always hiring at Kubi Energy. I said, loud and clear, buddy. I got you. So you can check out the careers link at kubienergy.ca if you're a Sparky, if you're an electrician, looking for a change of pace, you want to go work somewhere where you can be part of the green energy revolution. Also, they have floor hockey tournaments, and I know we're talking a lot about beer, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Kubi's got beer on tap at their office.
There you go again.
You know, for quitting time, 5
again.
o'clock. Hey, I'm just telling the truth. The careers link is ready for you. Apprentices, too. Kick off your career at the right place at Kubi Energy. All right. So once a week, we get a chance to just play a little rock and roll to ramp things up and to hand you the microphone. It's a tradition that's presented by our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. So it's time to bring the heat. We want to hear it. You got something to say? Bring us your hot takes. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. And Ray writes in. Ray says, why bother? I listened, as I most always do, to your podcast on Monday with Charles Adler. And I was kind of glad that Charles stepped into this poo pile as he was lamenting that Canada only emits 1.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So mathematically, what we do makes no difference. I think Charles knows and understands that the world has a GHG problem, but it's so attractive, says Ray, to make it somebody else's problem. There are 471 million domestic dogs in the world, according to my Google search. So why should I pick up the poop from my dog in a public place? That's only like 0.00002% of the world dog emissions, so why should I bother? Andrew Leach, in his book Between Doom and Denial, dedicates a whole chapter to this very subject, and I would encourage you to bring him on the show. Andrew Leach is on the show all the time, Ray. He says basically if every country had a just too small to matter stance, nothing would happen. He says, for example, China has only 25% of global greenhouse gas emissions, so acting alone and stopping all emissions from China wouldn't even be enough to make an earth-saving change. So Canada, step up to the plate and become a leader in this global transition so we don't keep stepping in dog poo. That from Ray. I love that one. How about this one from Randy, who writes in and says, my husband and I spent our working life in Alberta, but we've now retired in Victoria. We don't want our CPP going to an APP, and it's my understanding that the UCP is feeling like they're due some of our money. My answer is no. That from Randy. Quick and short, concise, love it, Randy. And this one from Derek, who says CPP or bust. Jespo, thank you for your consistent and real coverage of the potential move by the Alberta government to ditch the CPP for an Alberta pension plan, or as I like to call it, Alberta Social Security. The acronym works. ass. More appropriate if you ask me. Derek, we might start using that. He says, one thing that really chafes my balls, sorry everybody, is that whenever you or one of the experts you've had on your show emphasize the legitimate risk that we face in moving to an ass, you're met with the chorus of you're being hysterical, or you're fear-mongering, or you're Rachel Notley's foot soldier from these pro-APP buffoons. To them, I respond with a hearty, earmuffs kids, go fuck yourself, says Derek. And here's the kicker. Their dismissal of real, legitimate concerns from financial advisors and experts from Albertans who don't want to lose their pensions just shows the entitlement, the arrogance, and the disdain they have for their fellow Canadians. If these podunks want to... Is it podunks? I think it's podunks.
I believe it's podunkies.
I think I was feeling like podcast, but podunk. If these podunks want to do this, I suggest they go to their bank, withdraw their life savings, hit the casino, and bet on black while yelling fuck Trudeau at the top of their lungs. Just stay away from my pension. That from Derek, who is CPP or bust. The Flamethrower is presented by the Dairy Queens in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. Those are the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. You let them know that Real Talk sent you. You can send us your Flamethrower anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Have an incredible weekend, everybody. Thanks for supporting Real Talk. Go get your hands on Midlife 2.0, and we'll talk to you on Monday.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford.